In the heart of downtown Sacramento, California, a suited man drags something bulky and difficult to handle along the sidewalk while muttering to himself and moving with awkward steps, drawing the attention of passers-by who watch him in confusion, unable to understand exactly what is happening. The bundle, wrapped in a blanket, reveals an unsettlingly human shape as the man continues walking for several blocks until he reaches the CBI building, never stopping, as if an invisible force is pushing him forward. Inside, the team waits their turn to pass through security, caught up in the routine of another workday, when the door suddenly bursts open and the man enters the lobby, dragging the bundle across the floor. The scene immediately causes a reaction. Lisbon and Cho draw their weapons and quickly take him down, handcuffing him while clearing the area. Jane calmly approaches, kneels beside the wrapped body, and begins examining it carefully. The man's pulse is slow and steady. He shows no signs of intoxication or drug use. His breathing is stable, and his expression is completely neutral, almost absent. The man identifies himself as Carl Risnick and casually announces that he has just dragged the body 3 blocks, and that this is not a crime, but a gift, a simple bag of potatoes. The statement is as absurd as it is disturbing. Jane watches him in silence, studying his posture, the stiffness of his movements, and the way he keeps his eyes fixed ahead. Without hesitation, he concludes that the man is under a powerful state of hypnosis. Later, Rigsby refuses to accept that explanation and believes Carl is either lying or suffering from some kind of mental disorder. Cho continues questioning him patiently and asks who ordered him to bring the supposed bag of potatoes to the police, but Carl cannot remember anything specific. When Cho shows him a photograph of the dead woman, the man does not see a corpse. He sees potatoes, further strengthening the hypnosis theory. Rigsby insists that the man is crazy, but Jane stands firm and explains that no one can be forced under hypnosis to do something that goes against their nature, meaning Carl could not have murdered anyone. Either someone convinced him to drag the body while believing he was carrying something else, or the real killer used hypnosis to frame him. Lisbon asks whether it is possible to bring him out of the trance, but Jane explains that without knowing the specific trigger, it is almost impossible. Their best option is to find the hypnotist responsible. Carl's profile reinforces the theory. He has no criminal record, follows the rules, respects the law, and lives in an orderly, predictable way, making him the perfect candidate, someone obedient, suggestible, and easy to manipulate. Meanwhile, the victim is identified as Mary Bate, a 26-year-old teacher. Lisbon and Rigsby visit the victim's sister, Lindsay, who has just returned from a trip to San Francisco. Mary Bate recently left her teaching job and obtained a position as an assistant through her sister's connections. Lindsay works as an event organizer for seminars on neurolinguistic programming. Jane unexpectedly appears and immediately recognizes the name of the center's director, Dr. Royston Daniel, whom he already knows, adding an ironic comment about how unattractive the idea of secretly influencing people sounds. Cho informs Carl about Mary Bate's death, and he admits that he knew her from the center where he attends classes, although he does not remember having any close connection with her. Jane suggests using him as bait to lure the hypnotist out, a risky but effective strategy. Although Rigsby is suspicious, Carl agrees to participate, convinced that those therapies can improve anyone's life. The team goes to the center during one of the seminars. From the back of the auditorium, they watch an older man addressing the audience with a calm voice and measured gestures, drawing the entire crowd into a collective trance. A younger man approaches, touches him on the arm, and gently brings him out of that state. It is Daniel himself, who introduces himself to enthusiastic applause. Jane walks toward the edge of the stage and interrupts the presentation by announcing that Daniel's boat is on fire, hoping to provoke an immediate reaction. When it becomes clear that he does not even own a boat, Jane delivers the real news. His assistant is dead. Daniel shows a restrained reaction and agrees to accompany them outside, leaving the seminar in the hands of his partner, Rick, a man who is visibly less charismatic but equally committed to the message. In the hallway, Daniel claims that he does not recognize Carl. Rigsby begins explaining the strange potato trance case, and Daniel immediately recognizes the depth of the hypnotic state. While praising his own work, Lindsay appears carrying some papers. Daniel is surprised to see her and tells her that she should not be there, suggesting that she go home and take care of herself. His words cause a submissive, almost embarrassed reaction in her before she walks away. Back in the auditorium, Rick continues the seminar, raising the audience's excitement, moving through the rows and strengthening the collective suggestion, until he comes across Carl at the back of the room. The surprise on his face is obvious. Carl asks him what he wants him to do, and panic immediately takes over Rick. He runs from the room. Lisbon pursues him without hesitation and manages to catch him, placing him in handcuffs. During questioning, Rick denies hypnotizing either Mary Bate or Carl. He claims that the previous night he invited Mary Bate out, but she brutally rejected him. He drank heavily, blacked out around 1 a.m, and woke up hours later in her apartment, standing over her lifeless body while holding a smoking gun, with no memory of how he got there. Meanwhile, back at the office, Lisbon and Rigsby remain with Carl. At one point, almost without realizing it, Rigsby begins copying Lisbon's every movement, from his posture to the way he crosses his legs and touches his hair. She notices immediately and identifies it as a modeling technique used in neurolinguistic programming, briefly easing the tension before she walks away. The team considers the case closed and celebrates with pizza, although Jane remains apart from the others, uneasy as he studies the details that still do not fit together. Something about Rick's story deeply bothers him, especially the idea that a completely drunk man could remain standing for so long in front of a corpse. At that moment, Lindsay arrives to collect her sister's belongings, opening a new line of questions that Jane refuses to ignore. Jane takes advantage of Lindsay's presence to study every one of her movements, the way she walks, how she avoids certain looks, and how tightly she grips her purse while collecting her sister's personal belongings. He asks whether she truly believes Rick is responsible for Mary Bates' death. Her answer is measured, but it reveals a deep doubt. Deep down, she is not completely convinced that he was capable of killing her. Jane gently presses her and manages to uncover a crucial detail. Rick never explains how he got into the apartment. Mary Bate deeply hated that man and would never have opened the door for him. She was also extremely careful about her safety after being assaulted during a trip to Maui with Dr. Daniel. Only then does Lindsay mention, almost as an afterthought, that Mary Bate and Daniel have been romantically involved for 6 months. That revelation completely changes the picture. Jane immediately understands the significance of the lie and connects every piece with precision. The reason Daniel concealed the relationship becomes obvious, revealing a far more complicated web of manipulation than the team had imagined. Lisbon and Rigsby investigate the relationship between the victim and Daniel, while Van Pelt goes to find him. Daniel tries to draw information out of her, analyzing her personality and making calculated assumptions about her past and ambition, convinced that he has her under control. Van Pelt listens calmly and confronts him coldly, making it clear that after months of working alongside Jane, she is no longer so easy to manipulate. Daniel is left momentarily caught off guard. In the interrogation room, Daniel flatly denies having any romantic relationship with Mary Bate. He admits traveling to Paris, but claims it was for a business commitment. Jane watches every blink, every restrained breath, and every tiny change in his posture, convinced that he is lying because his eye contact is forced and unnatural. Rigsby asks to step in, and when he enters, the tension immediately rises. In a sudden outburst, he loses control and slams Daniel's face against the table, brutally breaking his nose. In the hallway, Lisbon confronts him furiously and demands his badge and gun, unable to understand how he could go that far. Jane watches in silence and immediately realizes what is happening. The certainty sends a chill through him. Rigsby is also under hypnosis. The team gathers around him while Rigsby insists that he is acting on his own. Jane explains that although Rigsby does have an impulsive side, the intensity of his reaction suggests a deep suggestion. Hypnotized subjects, when given very specific commands, lose their inhibitions and obey without questioning them. Jane asks Rigsby to close his eyes and think about what he most wants to do at that moment. After a few seconds, he tells him to open his eyes and do it. Rigsby lets out a nervous laugh and, without warning, lunges at Van Pelt and kisses her passionately. She is surprised but does not reject him. The scene confirms the trance beyond any doubt. Shortly afterward, Rigsby feels an overwhelming need to leave. He listens to no reason or orders, responding only to Van Pelt's voice, forcing the team to let him go so they do not provoke a violent reaction. The conclusion is clear. Rick really is hypnotized, and now Rigsby is as well. The central question becomes who is behind everything and why. Jane suspects that the attack on Daniel is a secondary consequence of a deeper collateral damage caused by the intensity of the trance. Lisbon and Cho head to the courthouse intending to protect Rick, but discover that he has been released on bail because the center itself covers the payment. Rick gets into a taxi without looking back, unaware that his life is in real danger. Jane takes Rigsby and Van Pelt to a children's playground, an open and peaceful environment where he believes Rigsby may feel safer. There, he tries to break the trance by guiding him to watch the constant movement of the swings, the hypnotic back-and-forth motion of the children, and the repetitive sound of the chains. As Rigsby begins sinking deeper into the trance, Jane tests different stimuli, words, gestures, and images, searching for the hidden trigger. The attempt fails. Rigsby becomes increasingly agitated, confusion overwhelms him, and he eventually runs from the playground. Jane realizes that he is too deeply trapped in the trance and warns that if Van Pelt tries to stop him, he could hurt her. They have no choice but to let him go. Rigsby walks without any apparent direction until he returns to the center. He enters the empty auditorium, where the darkness and silence create an unsettling atmosphere. There he discovers Dr. Daniel tied to a chair, tape covering his mouth, while Lindsay stands nearby, firmly pointing a gun at him. In Rigsby's mind, confused fragments finally begin to come together. A memory suddenly becomes clear. When Rigsby went to question Lindsay about her sister and her relationship with Daniel, she secretly subjected him to a hypnosis session, planting commands in his mind that now control him. Back in the present, inside Daniel's office, she prevents him from trying to reason with Rigsby and silences him. She accuses Daniel of ignoring her, of never truly seeing her. She confesses that she loves him and believes that if she eliminates Mary Bate, he will finally notice her. Together, they drag the chair toward the building's rooftop, exposing him to the open drop. Lindsay admits that although she was in San Francisco when her sister was murdered, she rented a car, drove through the night, killed her, and then hypnotized both Rick and Carl to cover up the crime. She insists that Daniel hurt her emotionally, used her, and discarded her, and she begs for protection. Rigsby, trapped inside the trance, reacts violently and strikes Daniel, and then Jane appears on the rooftop. Jane reaches the rooftop after following the signal from the tracker he placed on Rigsby at the park. He moves cautiously, studying the surroundings and calculating every possible move. The wind blows hard at that height, the edge of the building is only a few feet away, and the danger is obvious. In front of him, Lindsay holds the gun firmly. Daniel remains tied to the chair, his face covered in blood and his body rigid, while Rigsby stands motionless, trapped between confusion and suggestion. Lindsay points out that she has complete control of the situation, that she is the one directing every move, and makes it clear that she will not allow anyone to interfere. Jane keeps his hands visible and advances slowly, trying to buy time while studying every one of her gestures, the tension in her jaw and the barely noticeable trembling of her fingers, unmistakable signs that she is on the verge of an emotional collapse. At that moment, Lisbon emerges from the side with her weapon ready, aiming directly at Lindsay and forcing her to divide her attention. From the shadows, Rick also appears with a gun in his hand, completely under hypnotic control, adding another dangerous factor to the situation. The tension becomes suffocating. Jane senses Lindsay's fragile mental state and begins speaking to her calmly, slowly dismantling her sense of control. He points out that this is not power or dominance, but a destructive spiral that can only end with everyone dead. He forces her to face the reality of what she has done, confronting her own weakness, her desperate need to be seen, to feel valuable, and to stop living in the shadow of her sister's brighter presence. Lindsay mentions the sound of the sea, evokes the calm of the ocean, and orders Rigsby to take Jane swimming. There is no ocean. There is only empty space, with concrete many stories below. Rigsby moves with Jane toward the edge of the building, trapped by the command, while both men struggle to break the control over him. Jane uses a distraction, suggesting that there is a shark beneath the imagined surface, causing Rigsby's mind to hesitate for just a moment. Then he notices Lindsay approaching and begins tapping Rigsby's shoulder in a small, rhythmic pattern, finally realizing that this is the hidden trigger. Jane quickly copies her and first touches Rigsby's shoulder, breaking the hypnotic pattern. Rigsby's expression changes instantly. The stiffness leaves his body, and confusion takes over. Lisbon uses that brief moment of chaos to disarm Rick, taking him down before he can react. Cho immediately arrives to secure the scene. Lindsay is surrounded with no way out and is handcuffed as her emotional defenses completely collapse. Back at the office, the atmosphere slowly begins to relax. The team allows themselves to joke with Rigsby, reminding him of everything he did while under hypnosis, from attacking Daniel to impulsively kissing Van Pelt, creating laughter and knowing looks among them. Lisbon informs him that the charges against him for attacking Daniel have been dropped because of the mental manipulation he suffered. Rigsby is visibly relieved, although he cannot remember anything that happened during the trance. Van Pelt tries to reassure him, telling him that his behavior was not strange or embarrassing, and that he was simply acting under a powerful outside influence. Even so, Cho and Lisbon suspect that deep down he remembers more than he admits, although he chooses to remain silent. Jane watches the scene with a slight smile and comments that the memories will eventually return with time. Before leaving, he gently places his hand on Rigsby's shoulder, accidentally triggering the slightest reaction, causing a brief moment of tension before everyone bursts into laughter. The calm gradually returns to the CBI building as the case is finally closed, leaving behind an unsettling lesson about the power of the mind, emotional vulnerability, and how easily control can change hands. If you enjoyed this episode, don't stop here. Head over to my channel and check out the complete playlist of The Mentalist, with every episode organized in order from beginning to end. Watch the full series, follow Patrick Jane's journey, and discover all the hidden details, mysteries, and secrets along the way. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more.